Yeah, we'll
Because that's what we did last time.
yeah. Oh, there's Nicole. Hi, Nicole.
Hi.
How's
Hello, Nicole. How we doing?
How are you?
Hello there.
I know. Hello there.
It's awesome.
we
Mhm.
we we kind of messed up a little bit. The posting says we start at 5:30. So what we were going to do is if you're okay with it, we'll start it and, kind of just have a conversation. And is that okay with you, Nicole?
That works for me. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Randall, is that okay
Yep.
with you?
Yeah. Okay. I'll start it now.
Okay. Awesome. Yeah, because people are waiting to come in. So we can do our little chit chat as people are coming in too.
Mhm.
Okay, the attendees are coming in. We'll give it a bit of time. Thank you for waiting. I know we're 5 minutes late for people. We just had a bit of coordinating to do, and we're hoping to simply have a conversation and a discussion. This is part two. So I'll wait a little bit longer. We have 18 people who are coming in. Maybe give it a minute or so. Nicole and Howard, can you see the attendees?
I can't see them.
No, the list, the names,
Yeah,
right?
I can see the
Yeah.
name. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see.
Yeah, it's always challenging, like to choose to do a webinar or a Zoom meeting, but depending on how many people you have, a webinar is better, right?
Mhm.
So the people that are the attendees, are they all on at the moment?
Yeah, there's 19 people there. Yeah. If you go to click on the right-hand panel, you'll see that, but do you see it now, Howard? Yeah. Okay. Ani, bonjour. Minaduna Kwe Indishnakas, Wawashkiji and Dodam, Sudbury and Dijiba, Nishnabi Métis Kwe and Dao. I want to welcome everybody to the part two, Bridging a Gap, Improving Mental Health Services in Remote Northern Indigenous Communities, which Edwin and Howard will correct that for me. My Anishinaabe is not that great. Building collaborative approaches to community mental health in remote northern communities. I'm Lynn LaValle. I'm a citizen of the Métis Nation of Ontario and a professor in the School of Social Work at Toronto Metropolitan University. And I'm also the strategic lead Indigenous resurgence in the Faculty of Community Services. And part of that work this year involved being the supervisor for two students who are in their fourth year placement, Howard Owen and Marin Pichinen. I'm saying that wrong. Marin's going to be upset with me, but not really. Marin doesn't get upset, but Marin couldn't make it. Marin broke her ankle, so is not able to be with us today. But I really want to say chimigwech to Howard and Marin for completely independently organizing the speaker series and from designing it, the topic idea to the panelists. So I want to say chimigwech to Howard and Marin for that, and we wish Marin all the best today. And hopefully she'll be back soon and on her feet. So this webinar will bring Indigenous and Western mental health professionals currently working in remote Northern Indigenous communities together to discuss the differences and similarities in how they understand and approach mental health. They will aim to shed light on the challenges created when Western and Indigenous professionals operate in isolation from each other, as well as identify the benefits of and opportunities for collaboration between Western and Indigenous professionals. I am going to hand it over to Howard to do our opening, and then we can go back and do an introduction of ourselves.
Bonjour, nagkakaroon ng kabisan tumik. Ay, umandaw ako muna. Ay, kape. Ay, pagsenta ko sa pangiji ka kikitihan. Sige, gitu mau ko na ka no tamik ko kino. Bueno, que kaya wat ni ko si kaya water. Yeni nitas. Wat kinagi ko jimin sik shi kainan ki yang. Bueno, ko kaji ko kwe chan kito ngane to bueno que algo ni tipo medicina. Nagi ko jimin sik no ka shi tu to ma ko kaji ko kaji we kish to ma ko we ga yeni kaji kish to ya musi ve ni ko chumen ma ko na tika to ma the mo ski ge no na men ko ani ko water me no the page. Yeah,
Make wedge, Howard. Did you want to introduce yourself?
yes, my name is Howard Owen. So I am from Kansas, Ontario. I'm a mental health counselor. This is my final year for my PSW program through Ryerson, formerly known as Ryerson, Toronto Metropolitan University. And I work as a traveling mental health counselor to two communities. I've added another community to where I'm going to be going. New community.
Howard, I don't know what's up, but we can't hear you. Maybe it's when you go backwards.
All right, can you hear me?
Yeah, now we can. It just on the tail end there, I think I lost you.
All right, okay. Yeah, just saying that I work for two communities. I travel into two communities, Kingfisher Lake and then One Lake, and I've just added another community to my to where I'll be going and working in Scandiga, Lansdowne House. It's brand new. I'm nervous about it, but I like.
Yeah, it's definitely when you go back.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's me. And if you want to introduce yourself again, Dr. Nick.
Yeah.
Me?
Dr. Fowler?
Yes.
Oh, hi. I'm Dr. Fowler. I'm currently in Treaty 4 territory in Regina, Saskatchewan. I'll be moving to Treaty 1 in September. So I'll be moving to Winnipeg then. I had the pleasure of working in, and I don't even know if pleasure is the right word, but the experience of working in the North for my residency year with Howard in Sioux Lookout, and learned so much, and I continue to want to learn and try to learn in a good way. And I am being mentored by an elder here near Regina who is teaching me traditional ways, and we're trying to find ways of incorporating Western medicine with traditional practices. So it's a long haul, and I'm making mistakes and I'm learning, and I'm so happy to be here today to talk with everybody, not talk to, sorry.
Oh. Howard, did you want to go ahead, or do you want me to start us off?
You can start this off.
Okay. I was talking and I hadn't taken myself off mute. So I want to thank Maren. Maren prepared questions, and Maren was fully prepared to come in and have the conversation today and be fully involved. Maren had expressed that, with the first webinar and just working very closely with Howard, she's, very humble in recognizing the knowledge that she's gained. So she prepared all of these questions and was so excited. So to honor Maren, I'm going to ask her the questions that she proposed for you, Nicole. And the topic is working as an allied settler in Northern Indigenous communities. So Nicole, you completed your 1-year residency working in Indigenous communities across Northern Ontario. As a settler and outsider to these communities, how did your education prepare you or not prepare you for this work?
It didn't prepare me. It didn't at all. They're making changes now. I'm currently working at the university as a director of clinical training. And students are pushing for change in this area. So when I went through, there was no coursework on this or like an hour class, or not even an hour, maybe a half-hour discussion here and there. It was really through a clinical supervisor I had here in Regina who was committed to the TRC and doing things differently. And so he was the one who connected me with the elder and made these experiences possible for me. And it wasn't that I was connected to the elder and then suddenly I'm being, he's mentoring me and teaching me. Yeah, it was a process. You had to get to know him and he had to be able to trust me. And I feel very fortunate and a lot of gratitude that he did, because we're trying to do some good things, and but it's a long process. And with the students I train now, I am also trying to train them in different ways. So for example, talking about how the assessment tools we use do not include are tested and developed mostly on settlers, like on white urban Canadians, not on Indigenous populations. So how do we write our reports differently? How do we write that into our reports? How do we interpret the results in a different way? Because these tests aren't really testing, aren't necessarily accurate for Indigenous populations. So another way, oh, there's Walter. Another way is just, I've invited them in, certain students, it can't be all students because this isn't a, whatever, but I've invited them to traditional ceremonies, to take part, to learn. And I kind of tell them the protocols, but I'm like, I'm not going to be the teacher, and you listen to the people who are there, the elders, the knowledge keepers, and I'm just here to connect. So it's been very, in fact, I have about a year ago, I had a new student and the elder called me and said, we're doing a feast. And for people listening, I don't know if you know this, but if an elder calls you and says there's a feast, he didn't invite me. He just said there's a feast today. And I said, okay. And he said, this is where it is. This is the time. I said, okay. And I went to work and I said to the student, this is actually a learning moment for me. Said to the student, I think he was inviting us, but I'm not sure. And so in the traditional settler way, we're going back and forth, like, do we show, do we go, do we not? And then I phoned him and he said, you don't ask. If you hear about it, you've been invited. And so got a little reprimand, but in a kind way. And so I said, okay, we're going. So literally within 2 hours, her and I are going to a feast where I'm trying to pick up food to bring, and I'm trying to tell her the protocols, and I wasn't prepared for it. I didn't have my kit in my car, as they say, always have a kit in your car for feast. And we get there, and on the way there, she was telling me some personal things, and she was struggling with something. And the first sentence the elder said when we got there spoke directly to her. And I looked at her, and she was welling up in tears. And she was like, this was the most incredible thing I've ever been to. So now these are the little ways I'm hoping to change things, to have prepared new students in a way that I wasn't prepared. So, yeah.
Wow, nice, Miigwech. Hey, Walter, how's it going? Did you want to take your mic off? Is he there, Howard, do you think?
Oh, there.
Oh, there he is. Hi, Walter. I think Howard's texting him right now. Maybe there might be some technical issues there. I had a question for you from that, Nicole. Have you ever brought somebody to ceremony and they didn't, like you couldn't bring them back? You couldn't invite them back?
Not
No.
yet.
Okay.
Oh boy. I'm very selective about who I would bring, and it has to be somebody who has shown like I don't even know how to describe it. There's kind of a knowing, you know who to bring and who you wouldn't bring because they wouldn't understand.
Yeah.
And even people, I kind of vet, I'm kind of the same as the elder was with me. I kind of vet people, or like make sure they're okay before I would even bring it up. Yeah. And I have a recent example from last week that I might talk about where someone I thought I could potentially bring, not ready. Just
Mm.
said, yeah.
Okay, we'll hold that thought. We'll come back to that.
Yeah.
Is Walter Is Walter there? No, technical.
Hello, Walter, are you there? Is he still there?
No. Maybe we'll get Randall to prompt Walter somehow. Randall, oh, and thank you, Randall, for being our IT support here. I'll let Howard continue trying to work with Walter. So the panel last time included Walter, Nicole, and Roland. Roland won't be able to make it. Walter is here, so hopefully Walter can participate shortly. But this is meant to be a conversation, and kind of relaxed. And yeah, so I'm thinking about, different ceremony, and you're right, like, bringing the right person, like just knowing it's the right person. But I've been to ceremony at times where someone's there and they are not invited back. And it's not necessarily that they weren't Indigenous. It's more just, recognizing some issues there. So maybe I'll let you tell that story. And then I have a question that might take a bit of time that maybe Howard and Walter can join in on. So did you want to share the little story that you wrote here?
Well, before I share that one, I'll share one of you. Was it my first sweat? I think it was a health region sweat. Anybody was invited, and some nursing students had come. They happened to be white. It doesn't, in this case, doesn't matter, but they were quite upset by some of the protocols that they saw as sexist. And like I had mentioned to the girl, you got to take your glasses off. You can't bring it into sweat. You can't bring, and she was so mad. And like, yeah, it was really hard. Like you're in a traditional sacred place. Yeah, it was, yeah, but I hadn't invited them, but you reminded me of them. But anyway, the story from a week ago, a student was being supervised by my colleague, who's also white, and they were treating an Indigenous woman from the community where my elder's from. And so I was taking over supervision because we were switching therapies, and it was a therapy I knew. And so I went to introduce myself to the woman, and I did so in my regular manner, which is more informal, more like, who do you know? Like, this is who I am. This is who I know. And 90% of the time it goes well. And this is the connection I'm trying to make the connection of, this is where I'm from. Where are you from? That kind of thing. And so I had told her that I knew the elder from the community she's from, and she was fine. And then I left the room, and she started telling the student she wasn't comfortable with me because I knew the community, and who was I, and how did I get connected? What were my intentions? And it went badly. And she had asked the next day that I not be involved in her care, which I said, yep, that's fine. I'm respectful of that. I get it. But the student and the other supervisor couldn't understand why I had done that. And they were challenge is too strong of a word, but they were challenging me on that and saying that this self-disclosure wasn't appropriate. And I had to defend my reasoning. And then my colleague kept referring to the elder as the chief, and I kept correcting her. And it was very hard for me because, and I don't mean it like, I understand my privileges, I do, and I, you know, but it was so, it's reminded me of how far we still have to come, and how like this was such a simple thing, and so like to me was so easily explained, but they just could not understand my approach and why I would have taken that approach. And I was thinking I was doing like 90% of the time, this approach, this is what works. In fact, at this very same time, I'd used the same approach with somebody in my private practice, and they said that it actually helped them open up because they knew I understood, they knew where I was coming from, that kind of thing. So, but it was more the reaction of the student and my colleague that bothered. The client, I totally understood. Oh, that was the other piece, is my colleague kept saying, well, I'll talk to her about confidentiality and she'll understand, like we're psychologists and we live by a different set of rules. I said, she will not understand. And I kept trying to explain that to her. This is confidentiality in community is very different and she will not understand. And she kept arguing with me about that point. And yeah, it was hard. It was hard.
Wow. I'll go back to a question about boundaries and confidentiality, but hey, Walter, how's it going?
Hello,
Hello.
you hear me now?
We can hear you now. Can you hear me now?
Well, I've heard you all the time.
Oh,
I was just my system here. I just had a blank picture and no sound.
okay. Now we can see you. We can hear you.
I just shut it off and rebooted.
Okay. So we already kind of did our opening because we had to start at 5:30, not realizing it wasn't 6. So Howard did an opening and Howard introduced himself. Nicole introduced herself. I introduced myself. Did you want to introduce yourself?
Well, yeah, I guess so. I'm Walter Lyon. I live in Sulakaut. I came from not very far away. I grew up in the area. I didn't grow up in a community like a reservation. I grew up in a small village, 35 miles from here. My I'll give you this. Might be interesting. I mean, because we're not all one size fits all in First Nations people. Like I didn't grow up with traditional knowledge. I grew up with bush knowledge, maybe you want to call it. My mother and father spoke Ojibwe to each other, but they didn't speak it to us. We learned the words but we couldn't form sentences. We had a teacher would come down from the teachers' college from Thunder Bay. They'd stay a year to maybe 3 years and switch over. Uh, yeah, and didn't have status until I was 40 years old.
Oh, wow.
But when I came to Sulakaut for high school in grade 9, obviously I gravitated to the First Nations people. The reserve closest by was Lac Seul, which is where my First Nations bloodline comes from anyway. So I hung around with a lot of those guys, a lot of people from the north as well. There wasn't many. I don't know if there was any Pakanjikan people in school back in the 70s at Howard. Yeah, not at our school, anyways. Maybe I don't know where they were going. Maybe Red Lake, probably. I don't know. But yeah, Sandy Lake people, Big Trout Lake people, all across the north. I met a lot of. But then I worked as a dry cleaner from when I was 20 till I was 40. For 20 years, I was the town dry cleaner. Sulakaut's a small place. Maybe there's 3,000 people back then. And then my boss was going to retire, so he wanted me to buy them out. So I said, well, I'll get my status. Because my mother got her status back for that Bill C something. She didn't have it. She got her status in 93, I think, and my brothers and sisters followed suit. My brothers and sisters followed suit. getting theirs, but I had a boss who wasn't very pleased with First Nations people, but I mean, I wouldn't say he was a racist person. It was just because we were running a business on Front Street, and we were forever kicking out the First Nations people who were passing out and drunk in our establishment, which is a dry cleaner's laundromat. And so he says, I mean, he made comments, like he was frustrated. It was ruining the business. So I thought, well, maybe that's a bird's eye view of how people see us. So I thought, well, I didn't need status to survive this long. So I don't need it. But when it came to that point when he wanted to close the shop, I thought, he said, get your status so you can get a First Nations loan and buy the place. That's kind of what he said. So I got my status and I said, no, I'm not going to do that. I went to school. So I went to school for probably 10 years. I mean, I got a college diploma. I got a BA in social development studies. I got an MSW and BSW and MSW through it. And also, I was working through that. Only the first 2 years was full time, and then after that, I was working up north, traveling to the communities where I met people through high school, attending. As a counselor. The last 15 years, I've been the supervisor. I did a lot of placement students, college and university students, of different backgrounds. So that's me.
Wow. Miigwech. Yeah,
Mhm.
so the dry cleaning business, I don't think dry cleaning business is doing too good nowadays. It's kind of just definitely changed. So
Mhm.
good choice. Wow.
Yeah.
Howard, did you have a question for Walter?
Ask me about the mallard.
Did you get the mallard out?
No, I lost them.
Oh man.
I was throwing out my garbage at the town dump, and there's a boat launch right across there because there's a river, Sturgeon River runs by there. Not close to the dump, it's a kilometer off, but by the highway. One side of the highway goes to the dump, the other side of the highway goes to the boat launch. So I went to take a peek down there, and sure enough, there was a pair down there, and I shot at a distance through some brush, and I broke the male's wing, and he was flopping around. So I ran down to the riverside, and I was blasting away as he was swimming further and further off. And I watched him climb the bank, get back on the other side of the river. So I kept screaming at my son to come because I wanted him to keep his eye on where the mallard went into the shoreline. And then I had to run back up to my truck, get in my truck, drive, clomber down, and go around the bridge and come to the other side of the river. Then I ran down the bank and tracked him to where he came up on the shore. He just disappeared. There was
Oh,
blood there. I broke his wing. That's what happened. So he was up against a high wall, like the river is here, like kind of like that. No, maybe I got my hands wrong. There, that's the river here, where my fingertips are. He climbed to the bank, and then I saw him, but he kind of blended in the bank. I couldn't see him anymore because the river's fairly wide. So I was looking for him, and I'm thinking, my God, it's already 4:15. I'm not even ready. I got to get out of here. But I don't know. He had blood in the snow, and he walked about 15 feet along the edge of that bank where he couldn't climb up, and his tracks ended.
oh,
And my son was watching, but he didn't see where the bird was. I just told him roughly where he was. He might have crawled back into the river and swam like a submarine. When they're wounded, they swim with just their head sticking out, like a That's why I couldn't hit him again.
oh,
So, but you know what? And it's the natural world. He's not going to be wasted. Something
nope.
else can eat him. There's eagles out flying back and forth. There's crows. There's mink there. There's fox. There's lynx. Somebody will get him and have a good meal on me, I guess.
Yeah, maybe the mink got him, pulled him under.
Maybe.
Yeah.
because they're pretty good at hiding. Howard knows that. I mean, if they go and lay down under a log or something or beside tight because their backs are gray and they look wonderfully nice and white on the inside of their arms and their bellies, but and their heads green. But if they lay down just like a partridge, you could step on them before they even move. You won't even see them. So
Yeah.
he might be there. I didn't have the time to keep looking.
Yeah.
Yeah, had to get over here.
Well, miigwech for coming.
Mhm.
Howard looks like he's in deep thought.
Okay.
Maybe not. Maybe what I'll do, Walter, so Marin couldn't make it today. Marin broke her ankle. But Marin was very excited and was really looking forward to engaging and being on camera and having conversation. But Marin did prepare questions, specifically for, all of you. So maybe I'll ask Marin's question for you, Walter, and it's about staff shortages. So Walter, over the course of your career, you've traveled and worked as a counselor in over 10 different communities and seen the impact of staff shortages at both the on the ground and supervisory levels. What do you think are the reasons behind the shortage in staff, and how does the shortage of staff impact the work you and other mental health workers are doing in community?
What are the reasons for the shortage? I think for this area, most of the for Nodin itself is the mental health program under Silicon First Nations Health Authority, where we're not, how accreditation I think it's called is a big thing. It's been a big thing the last 10 years. They require everybody to be registered social workers or registered psychotherapists. Well, when that happened, maybe more than 10 years ago, it first kicked in because it came from down south. I guess that's what we hear, because there were so many people, they might go to college for a couple of years or something, and they put up a sign on their door and they're a mental health therapist. And so I guess the government wanted to regulate it to make sure their people are getting probably safe, somebody with a background. So and it came up north, and we got word that it's we're going to lose our jobs if we're not registered. But I was already registered. I registered in 2015 with social workers, Ontario College of Social Service Workers, social workers. So that I was okay. So they sent us a package where people could get grandfathered in, having so many years of experience and maybe not the exact criteria that they were looking for registration. So a few people got those, and once they got them, they said, "Well, I'm not going to stay here. I'm going to work for myself." And they took off and went and did their thing, which is fine. I mean, that's okay. But then we lost some senior staff that went through that process. But the main thing here in Silicon, I can't say that for every place, is we have a we have actually a crisis level shortage of housing. We've interviewed a lot of people. I've interviewed a lot of people in the last 15 years. I can't tell you how many people. Some of them are, well, actually, we interviewed one lady from Southern Ontario. She was amazing, like a supervisor. And I just couldn't believe it. Like, I think I scored her 94%. I've never had anybody that high before. She had answers for all the questions we had. But when it came to the end of the interview, we asked her, "Well, any questions from you?" So she's asking if she can do it distance, or she could do it part-time. But it had nothing to do with housing, though. It had to do with, she had an ill mother. And I'm guessing the lady must have been in her maybe early 50s. And she was looking after her mother. She couldn't come. But if you can come here, there's no place to live. Our economy in Silicon has went through the mill over the last few years. I mean, I shouldn't say the mill, because we have no economy because the mill closed down, and then our logging industry is no longer very sustainable. And we were a major CN rail. There was probably hundreds of people employed through there. Those things have went by the way. So now all we have in Sioux Lookout is First Nations agencies, two mainly, Tikanagan and Slifna, where you can get jobs, good paying jobs, and also the tourism. That's about all we have for economy. Like stores have closed, and you look downtown. This community doesn't look like it was when I was 20 years old. So there's jobs here, and there's qualified people applying, but they can't find places to live. Slifna actually bought two hotels because the hotels are not sustainable either. We turned them into hostels. They bought a third one, and they're actually got 6 rooms there in that hotel where they're letting new hires stay there for 6 months. I think it is, to try to get them to come to work here. That's what it is. That's
Wow.
part of that, yeah.
Wow.
And the other thing, like I said, accreditation and housing. That's what we struggle with here in Sioux Lookout.
Mhm. Howard or Nicole, do you have anything to add or comments?
I just agree with Walter, and it's also quite isolated. So a lot of people, want more amenities around, but I can attest that I loved living there. I thought there's still lots to do, even though it was COVID times and we couldn't do anything. But I found stuff. I learned how to golf, so it's a great place to live if anybody's interested. So yeah, but it is hard. Like my residency wife, as I call her, is currently working for developmental services there, and she lives in Winnipeg and comes in about every 6 weeks for 2 weeks, and then comes back and writes reports. And he has been doing that for a couple of years, 2 or 3 years. So yeah.
Howard, did you want me to ask you your question from Maren?
No, I was gonna ask Walter a question. I was gonna just going on Marin's question there. Do we have any? I know we have in community counselors that are hired from that work for Noded. You have and also traveling counselors that go into the community. One of the 33 communities that's Slipknot services. You have an like how many traveling counselors do you have?
We have Petra, who's new. She's from Dryden, so hopefully she'll stick around. Dryden's only an hour and 15 minutes from here. She's local. We have James Plord. We have Dulcie Pennycook. That's 3. I don't know if there's any more. I think that's it. That's all we have to cover 31 plus communities. Yeah.
So, do we have any in-community counselors?
We had a community. We had a program that was called Children's Mental Health and Addictions Workers, which I was not hired, but I was seconded to supervise and train them, stuff like that when it started. It's in its probably 11th year, and we had about 10 positions. I had about 8 hired at the beginning. Right now, I think there is only maybe 2 left. There's Kathy and what's that place, Howard? I think you remember? It's a reserve up by.
But I remember her, yeah.
Yeah. Arrowland.
Arrowland, yeah.
Yeah. It's kind of away from our standard, but she's yeah. It's not really in our catchment area, but we hired her because there's close to what's that other reserve? No, that's in, Nescanega, not Nescanega. No, sorry, Martin Falls. And then And then there's Charles Williams from Cat Lake. Yeah. Have you ever met him, Nicole?
I don't think I did. No.
Yeah, there's the only two remaining in that. What's happening there is this is how that works. That program works though. Like the ministry presented the money, said, "Here's money to hire 10 community-based workers, and we want you, Noden, to find them, interview them, hire them, train them, and supervise them." And the money just funnels through here. So as far as I know, we're not that interested in it anymore because it's a lot of work and it's very hard supervising people you don't even see. Like to me, because my first what do you call it? My first work experience in the field is as a counselor, and I still see myself that way. Actually, I'm starting to see clients again as well. Just had a client last week. Well, not last week, 2 weeks ago. And I need to see you. Like I can see you, I can read you. I mean, I can your tone, your emotions, and all that stuff. If I don't see you, you're just sending me emails. I'm talking to you on the phone. You could tell me anything, and then I'll have to believe you. I don't know if you're actually doing what you're saying you're doing, and you can't just say, "Nicole, are you pulling my leg?" You know, it's not easy to do. It's not easy to supervise people from afar not for me. Some people might be good at it, but not me. I need to sit and breathe the same air you're breathing in the same space to get a good read. You know.
So what
Why
happened?
I mentioned how Charles Williams though is he's kind of you met him, right, Howard? He's kind of I don't know how would you say it. He said interesting story, when he landed, like he's from Wiagamo Lake. His wife is a Cat Lake band member. They met somewhere, and then he went to Cat Lake and landed there off the plane. An elder came to the plane and met him and said, "So you're the guy?" And he was looking at the elder, he's wondering, "What do you mean?" "I was told you'd be coming. You're going to come here and look after our youth." And that was before we even knew that there was going to be a youth program. So that's kind of became his role. He teaches youth. He does the land-based stuff, and he does traditional teachings as well. Mm-hmm. It's kind of weird. Like I'm a bit of a joker myself, and when you see when you see Charles, you'll see Billy the Kid or some kind of Western kind of guy. He's got black dingo boots with the strap on them, and he wears usually nice black pants or whatever, and he's got a leather vest on, and he's got a little cowboy hat with big beads or things around it, and a little feather in there. He's well dressed all the time. He's put together like this, nicely packaged. When he first came here, I was introducing him because I had to meet them all, get to know them, and introduce them all to staff because I'm the supervisor. I went and took him to see Bob Smith, our first psychologist. And I told Bob Smith, I said, "Here, I got a guy for you to meet. This is Charles." I said, "I think he has a serious problem. Maybe you can help him because you're a psychologist." He says, "What do you mean?" He says, "Well, when you look at him, doesn't he look like a cowboy? But he's supposed to be an Indian." Charles kind of got embarrassed, kind of went ready. It was just a joke, but I mean, I don't know if everybody thinks that's funny, but I mean, the way he presents himself, he's unique. You know.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of native folks have cowboy hats with the beading. So yeah. I have a question for Howard. just to pay tribute or homage to Marin. So what Marin wrote for you, Howard, was, as discussed in webinar 1, the best thing for these communities to have access to mental health and substance use workers who are themselves Indigenous community members. However, there's a shortage of folks, as we're talking about, with BSWs, MSWs, psychologists, etc. I'm wondering what the biggest barrier or challenge that currently stands in the way of Indigenous community members getting the professional accreditations needed to do this work in their own communities. Howard, as someone who is from a Northern Indigenous community, has years of experience as a mental health professional in these communities, and is yourself a current BSW student at TMU/FNTI, I think you are uniquely positioned to be able to tackle this question from many angles. What barriers and challenges do you experience in regards to pursuing professional accreditation? Now that you are a student, are these barriers that you still encounter in an academic institution? Are there barriers, sorry, that you still encounter in an academic institution? Loaded question, but
Yeah, I think one of the barriers I ran into was substance use. You know, there's a lot of individuals that in the communities, the remote communities, that have drinking problems, you know, that have a problem with drinking and drugs. You know, the problem that I had was drinking. You know, I didn't really have any role models to look, you know, up to when I was growing up. There was nobody to look up to. You know, it's just people that have, and those are the people that I looked up to, the people that were drinking. You know how horrible, how bad is that? You know, and to grow up around drinking, and to want to drink, to want to grow up to be a, you know, somebody that drinks, to see that as a fun activity, you know, that's where we are, you know, in the remote northern communities. That's what they see. That's what they're surrounded by. People that drink, people that do drugs. It's unfortunate and it's sad to see, you know, but to go, you know, I don't know, this is my 9th year, May 23 will be my 9th year of sobriety. You know, I'm happy about that. I'm proud about that, you know. And, you know, I've been in, you know, school since 2015. I went to college for 4 years, and then, you know, this is my 5th year here. And I think it's just more substance use problems that are in the community, and a lot of lateral violence as well. I came from, you know, the residential school era. You know, Catholic priests or teachers that befriended the older students that they had groomed already, or had already molded to further, or to abuse the younger children that were coming in to the residential schools. You know, that's what I see in the communities. You know, a lot of people want to change, wanting to go to school, but they're shut down, you know, by the chief and council. You go and ask for the chief and council for a letter, you know, to write to an NEC, and you won't get it. You know, sometimes they won't get it. You have to keep pressuring them, or keep calling them, or maybe show up there at the band office for a letter just to say, I want to do this. That is one of the things that hold us back from having our own, to help our own. But I see a lot of it is changing you know, but not at a pace where will I ever see. Maybe I will in my lifetime see other younger, the younger generation grow up, go to school, university, become a social worker or a police officer, and but that's one of the barriers there. And I think it's because my first language is Ojibwe. I had a hard time understanding, you know, where do I go? What do I do? I came from a remote community. Who do I go to for help? You know, do I ask for help? I these things I never did for myself when I was a kid because it was just it was um it was frowned upon. You know, it wasn't allowed. I wasn't allowed to ask for help or talk about my feelings. You know, that's for the individuals that want to work in northern communities. Just to let them know what they're going into. And this webinar, I want it like I love this. I love having to talk about what it's like, what difference, how it's different. You know, my partner, my girlfriend had talked about that. She worked up north, and her coworkers asked, did they still hunt? Where did they live? How did they survive?
Hmm.
That's how much education is still needed for, let's say, external counselors that want to come into the community and say, want to change, want to help, want to help with, the Indigenous population. It's a different society, really. So we didn't grow up in a perfect bubble. I know not everybody grows up in a perfect bubble, but to see, like, how easy it is to go for, say, Tylenol. If I want to go for Tylenol, I'm in an urban area. I can go for Tylenol just like that, maybe at 10 o'clock at night. Whereas northern communities, they have certain hours they can go to the store, 9 to 6, from 10 to 6 or whatever. Then there's sometimes there's no stock. They don't have fresh produce. Even if produce comes in, it's not really to the same as, Sobeys, Freshco, or Metro, wherever we go from. So those are the barriers. It's a rough life. Those are the barriers that I had to overcome, and it took a lot of help, courage from people that I met, that I have met in the last 9 years, and it's like I'm very oh man, in the 9 years that I've done good, I still think that the good that I've done, it still hasn't outweighed any of the bad that I've done before. That's how I feel. That's how. That's what residential school did to us, and learned behaviors, passed on behaviors. It's a generational trauma, generation passed on behaviors. It's still very. You can still see it. I still see it. It's very sad and unfortunate to see. But yeah,
Do you see a little bit of change with the younger generation, or is it just as discouraging, like with,
No, I see change. I see a lot of the younger youth wanting to learn more about their culture, learn about the culture, the sweat ceremony, drumming, all those. That was never talked about back home. Like when I did my placement for my Indigenous Wellness and Addictions program, I asked an elder what he knew about the culture, and he was talking about it. It was just me and him. But when I invited him to the school to talk about it, it was like he scoffed it off. He's like, "No, I don't know anything about that." It's like that's the kind of behavior, you know. That's just how he was.
Mhm.
How a lot of our people were. I think it was ingrained in them that not to talk about their culture or even speak their language.
Mhm.
These are the kind of individuals that we are trying to help and assist with their own issues. This is what we're going into. Don't. Yeah, I think that's yeah. That's
Yeah.
for
No, you're making me think about, like, even down south, like we had this conversation, Howard, about where can you go to a sweat lodge? And, right now in the city, for instance, like Anishinaabe Health is closed for a little bit. And, some people don't want to go to sweats in the city, but there's not a lot available. And then you have to kind of sync with the healer or the ceremonialist who's going to be doing that, right? But I'm wondering if up north, like, and I get that we have to, in order to get supports for communities, we have to get people who have their BSW, their MSW, their psychology degrees, they're registered with the Ontario Association of Social Workers, or else government won't fund the program, right? But is there a way that, or is there a lot of opportunity for people up north to go to a sweat lodge if they want to, or to go to, Sundance, or go to talk to a healer, right? So, and that's where I think we can push, government or whoever to fund those activities, right? But there is no accreditation, it's, so do you ever do you ever advise people or link people with, community resources, people who are ceremonialists, whether they're healers or medicine people? Like, is there that opportunity for all of you?
not all of them. Yes, there are elders in the community that do like medicine. There is. I know of three or no, three elders that go into community, just travel into community and perform sweat blood ceremonies and medicine picking as well, which is well, I could tell another story. There was a medicine man that was brought into Bikanjikam a couple of years ago, maybe 5, 6 years ago. A lot of the elder, no, maybe more than 6 years ago, maybe 10, 12 years ago, I'll say. A lot of the elders or older generation of elders who were people that attended church a lot or Christians, they heard that this medicine man was coming in, and who were the first people that came in to see the medicine man? It was the elders. They knew that it worked. They knew that stuff worked. Then why, say that when we're trying to go back into the culture, why do you deem it evil? Why do you see it as an evil practice? And yet here you are. They're taking home the medicine. They're bringing their own buckets and bottles, to fill. You know, and this is what you see, or now or talked about as evil or whatever. But again, like I said, here we are, and taking as much medicine home. It didn't make any. Like, that's what we have to work with and who we have to work with. But again, change is coming. I see it. I see along a lot of the younger, let's say early 20s, maybe even mid from 15 until maybe 50 to 25-year-olds. I want to see more powwows, sweat lodge ceremonies in the community. It's coming.
Yep. Yeah, and I was Vern Harper Gabewis for 20 years before he passed, and he had a healing lodge, called it the Four Directions Camp, and he didn't get any funding for that. He worked at CAMH for a bit, Center for Addiction and Mental Health, but CAMH wouldn't support the Sweat Lodge, right? That was in Guelph. So, you go based on people who are going to donate, or because ceremony costs money. But we say, oh, you shouldn't pay for ceremony, but you should never go empty-handed to ceremony, right? So it's like whenever I can, I try to get funding for ceremony in my role, because I think that's kind of the answer to not to discredit, social workers, psychologists. Like I think that, that approach that brings both together is so vital. But how can we also support ceremony, right? Walter?
Yeah, we have a program here at Slifnup for that. We have my cousin is Tom Chisel. He's more of a medicine man. Howard knows him. Um, he he had space here all these years, and they finally were working behind the scenes. I guess our director and him for a number of years, like 5 years or so. They bought a little tourist camp between here and a little community called Hudson, 15 miles. It's in the middle there somewhere. It's got a native name, and I forgot what it is already. But it it used to be it's on Little Vermilion. There's a little bridge before it, and the water runs through there. And the camp is nice, is set around there. Uh, he does all the medicine stuff, and but over here we did something different. I'm not sure if Nicole keeps in touch, but we have an elder here as well. Her name is Violet Tuesday. She's 74 or so, so I don't know much longer she's going to be on staff. She was a frontline counselor, but now we've changed her position to cultural support worker. And what we're doing is, I don't know if it's a good thing. I mean, it's not really my area to say, but we're separating traditional from cultural. And I don't know if that makes any sense. So Violet is a cultural person. She can see our staff, I mean clients who want to know about how we did things back in the day, how we dealt with grief, how we dealt with these things. But our our traditional program with the Tom Chisel, who's a medicine man, like he goes to the bush, he does the sweats. So we have that on the side. Any clients that come to Noden have the option of going to a sweat in the evening with him. But we just need, and our other program, which is called the hostel, and they have vans, they can drive them out and bring them back. We offer them, we raise it to the clients when they're here if they're interested in that. But usually they start with Violet. Like if we have this is a short-term counseling, 5 days. So we offer them up front if they wanted to see a cultural support person. And if we had 5 sessions, say, well, maybe they'll take one or two and see her. Usually the elders like to do that because she's probably on front line. She's the only one that speaks the language now. Yeah, and actually, that's good. Yeah, I don't want to go there, but I was going to say something else. But anyways, we do cover that, and but the thing is, like you said, um, even if we want to use the camp, like if we want to go there and do a retreat or some training, we have to pay Slifna ourselves from our money, because it's there's, I don't know, it's a non-profit thing or whatever. I don't know. I'm not sure what the wording is. Yeah, but we've always had an elder. I mean, a medicine person, and what's kind of cool about it is, um, um, Tom has a BSW from probably the '80s or something. So he bridges both worlds. He actually works with NOSM, Northwestern or School of Medicine. All the new trained doctors. He does a lot of cultural sessions with them and teaches them traditions. And also on staff, actually, they were over at Developmental Services, another program we have. There was two guys there. One was Charles Meekus, the other was Dieter Sinawap. Charles is more like he's probably around 50-ish or 45, 50-ish. And then Dieter is in his 20s, late 20s, like a mentor, you know, uh, trainee. They do a lot of cultural teachings too. And we were developing that program where they even came here and spoke to us. They talked about pre-contact. We go through because Charles has some Laurentian University. I don't know what his degree is, but I mean, so he's he's kept himself up with the readings of the latest books on the topic. So he shares from the books and he blends it with traditional history. And he teaches all staff. Doesn't matter if you're black, white, yellow, or brown. I mean, he educates us about how the impacts of colonization and stuff, and trying to help our staff know themselves better and how they fit into this mosaic that we're working with different races and different backgrounds to help First Nations people. And a lot of them, like you're probably aware, is they're not aware that a lot of them, the young ones are not aware of their history and how it's impacting them, like the intergenerational trauma stuff, why they feel the way they feel. Yeah. So, anyways, just to let you know that we do have that here, but we don't have people traveling in the north doing that.
Nice.
And the government, our funders, like they don't look for they. How do I say it? For us, we have to have stats. We have to have certain numbers, and we have to report to the ministry what we're doing. But Tom doesn't have to do that.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know how unique that is, but I don't think it's very wide, broad opportunity that we offer there. Yeah.
It's good that they recognize that. Nicole, do you have anything to add before I ask the final question for all of you? No? Okay. So this is gonna be for anybody and everybody. How can, and this is a question from that Maren and Howard worked on, how can non-Indigenous settler workers in remote Indigenous communities work in collaboration with and work to establish collaborative relationships with Indigenous professionals and workers? What does a collaborative working relationship look like? And beyond that, what does a truly allied relationship look like? So I can see it here with the three of you, right? Well, in the four with Roland as well. But Nicole, did you want to take on that question first?
It's a tough question, kind of a tough question, because I find it hard to explain with words. So I'll take Walter mentioned Violet. So Violet came to my office when she first met me, and she attended residential school. She was distrusting of settlers, white settlers. And so she came in and she told me a story that I had been kind of warned about how we don't mix and we shouldn't, you know, Indigenous people do their thing and white people do their thing. And um and I had seen how other people had reacted, other white settlers had reacted to it, and I decided I wasn't going to do that. So I sat and I listened, and I didn't say anything. And then at the end, I thanked her for her story because it was important for me to hear that story. And she stopped and she looked at me, and you could see that no one had ever thanked her before. And that moment was the moment. Then she was in my office quite often, 45 minutes at a time, telling me things I needed to hear. And I would sit and I would listen. And sometimes you think, why am I hearing this? I don't see how this is relevant to my job. I got things to do. And you have to park that because there's a reason you're being told it. And you might not know the reason in that moment. You might not know it next year or 5 years from now, but one moment, at some point in your life, there's going to be a connection back. And I've had that happen where you're like, oh, now I know why I was told that. So it's really important to listen and to listen completely. So shut off your brain, shut off the things you have to do and listen. And don't come in with your like you want to come in with your knowledge to a certain extent because you want to make sure there's, you know, that, you know, maybe there's some way you can help, but it's more important to listen and take in what's being said to you and try to incorporate it into what you think you know. Because what you think you know might not work in community and actually might be damaging, to be really honest. So you have to think of things differently and be open. Be very, very open to what's being said to you so that you can understand even a little bit more, but you'll never fully understand. So yeah, that's I don't know. What does Walter and Howard think of that? Or have their own ideas, I guess.
Just to remind folks before Walter or Howard join in on that, if you have any questions, you can put them in the Q&A. So we have one that I'll come to after we hear from Walter and Howard. Do you want me to repeat the question, Walter?
No, that's okay. I wasn't sure who was going to go first, but I just see always fighting though. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I think you know what? Even though I'm First Nations, well, I'm not pure. I don't know how many pure Native First Nations are there anymore, but I don't speak my language. When I first went up north, when I left the dry cleaning field after 20 years of sweating. But one thing I can tell you though is working in the dry cleaning business for 20 years in customer service. The customer is always right. That's the rule, and you don't argue with them. So you develop some basic counseling skills when you a dry cleaner. you don't confront them. You don't argue with them. You just listen to them and thank them, and you greet them, and you greet them when they leave. You respect them, and you wouldn't have a job without customers. You don't have a job without clients either. And if somebody, and when I came to work with those skills, I guess already, I could build rapport pretty quick, and I can make people feel comfortable right away if that's my goal. Let's put it that way. Sometimes it's not. Just kidding. Like depend on the scenario you're in. But the thing is, when you're when I was going up north, I was going into a world that I've never been to. Sounds weird. Like I'm not from the city. I didn't grow up, in a place where there was only Europeans. But I went to a place where I only heard about. So I was kind of like, how do I fit in here myself? But it was a bigger advantage than say Nicole, obviously, because I'm brown and I look like them. I remember having a young girl, I think she was 12 or 11, came in and she wasn't talking to me much. So I asked if her mother could come in, and she came in, and I'm talking with her, I was talking at her, I guess, more than anything, and I finally stopped. I said, "Do you think I'm a white man?" And she's looking at me like this, and she goes, I said, "Do I look like I'm a white man?" She says, "No." But it was the way I was talking and sounding. I sounded, because I was educated. I was this kid. I don't know. I think I was still in my BA, just finishing my last year of my BA. So don't use jargon, obviously. You don't use that kind of language. You have to come, you have to meet them where they're at, which is not hard for me, obviously, because I mean I grew up in the bush too. Like Howard says, you feel like uh, you're from a different planet sometimes when you're in a big city or something. So, anyways, that's what I would say. Like to work with people um, is to just come together and say, well, okay, this is what I know about the topic. If you wanted to, like, say you have a little meeting with each other, say you come together, you come to the community together, you meet on the plane, and you go to the same residence, you're staying there, and who's your clients? Who's your clients? And this is the issue. So this is how I would normally deal with this situation. What can you? How do you deal with it? You would share with each other what approaches you have, and and show some interest in what the other person skills they have, and say how could I incorporate some of that into mine, not to be them but to be that bridge, so that our two varieties can meld together and become a more more full more fuller package for the client. um, yeah, I think life is, I think if we want to get the most out of our life, we have to be a student of everything. And one time one point when I was growing up, uh, I I mean, learning how to be an adult, I guess you'd say as well. We got to approach life as if we're learning everything new every day, new things every day. So if we come to our coworkers in that way, it's not like, this is what I know. I don't know what you know. Like it's not a it's open door. It's an open. It yeah. It makes them feel like, okay. He wants to know what I know, and now I'm going to share what I know, and we share what I know, and we build a better team together. Yeah,
Nice.
that's about it.
Which we have 8 minutes left, and we do have a question in the Q&A. So I wanted to try to ask that of Howard, and then maybe Walter and Nicole if you wanted to add. And I think it's a really good question because I hear students talking about this all the time, and perhaps like with contracts in the north, they might get a bigger lump sum of money at first, and that money might be the attraction. Not that this is where the question is coming from for Natasha, but really good question, Natasha. What would you suggest for white students thinking about doing government contracts for northern work after achieving a psych or MSW degree?
I think don't go in there as I think Walter was just saying, and Nicole Bryan and Sullivan. I think don't go in there as a highly educated. I know my words. I know this. I know but so just go in there as yourself, as a human being. Engage in community activities. If you can. Ask about community events. If there's anything happening in the community, go and join in. Talk to the local staff. Talk to the local people. Go out and about. Don't stay in one area or where you're accommodated. Go out and about. You'll be fine. Nobody's gonna hurt you. You know, there's not. There's a lot of misconceptions about the North, where it's just about fighting, drinking. It's not all about that all the time. It's I find them more friendlier. They're people that want to engage in conversation, they want to talk. Whereas here, you step on a piece of land, you either get shot or you get told to get out, get the F out of there, But not out there, no. It's a different world. Like I said, it's a really different world.
Yeah.
Don't be
So you're saying people should take those contracts. Have any of you experienced people coming from the south to the north doing a contract and it working out well and maybe people staying, or is it more of kind of like that helicopter thing where people come in and they take and, what's your experiences with that? Nicole?
Well, my Chantel, was my residency wife, she did a residency there and then she came back and was doing contract, and now she works for the health region because she's very committed to building community, building capacity, and she wants to as she says, work her way out of a job because she wants to train and help people in the communities help themselves so she doesn't have to do it. But she's one person for 30 communities and a 300 person wait list. So she's like, to try not to get burnt out. And when you're the only person doing that job, she's burning out. Like, I'm watching her burn out. But she also has appropriate supports and things. You want to make sure you have those in place. But there are people who've shown up, like she's told me stories about professionals showing up from Toronto in like Canada Goose gear from head to toe, and they're got like high heels on and they're dressed to the nines, and she's like, what are you doing? Like, oh. And so then you got to be aware of where you're going, and it's the way you dress, it's the way, as Howard said, it's the way you talk, it's the way you present yourself. You don't go in acting like you're going to come save people, because that's not what you're going to do. So be yourself, but not with Canada Goose all over you. Yeah. Anyway.
Walter?
I think it's talking about, I just read her question again. Yeah, I think it's a good experience. I think if you have the opportunity, you should take it, and you'll expand your toolbox and your experience and your knowledge at the same time. They are definitely always looking for people, and sometimes you just may hit the right the community in the right spot, and you can develop, if you can develop good relationships with some of the leadership there as well, and some clients, that if they can sense that you're a genuine helper that's concerned about them, and you're not up there just to get some experience and hours under your belt, you're going to know pretty quickly that they would want you to come back. They want to see you again. They're going to be wondering when, they're going to ask you when you're going to be back, because that's a real helper. That's a born and bred kind of helper. It's not from education. But the education helps you do a better job. It's just your personality and your makeup, which is very important. And
Nice.
they'll appreciate you.
Howard? We got 2 minutes left.
2 minutes.
Yeah.
Hey, just like Nicole says, like when they come in the winter, man, they're like, oh man, like the Michelin Man, you know? Oh, I mean, yes, obviously, it's nice to just warm in the plane where it stops. It's going to be stopping here and there or whatever, but you know, yeah, you want to go in there and say, "Oh man, I want to do this." I want to go
Mhm.
or just engage, just be yourself. Don't go in there, bring in your own cutlery and Tupperware or whatever. Because we had a doctor that came into one of the communities who brought in their own plate, you know. Their own plate, their own cutlery, you know. We had a brand new kitchen, we had a brand new here and there and everything, but that's just showed us, you know, that they didn't want to work with us or just
Yeah.
bothered by us. But don't be like that. Just be open-minded, both an open mind and just yourself. Don't be anything else. Don't be the student. Don't be the scholar. Just be yourself.
Nice. Nice closing words, Howard. I want to thank all of you, Chimigwech, and thank you for Randall for doing the IT. Thank you for everybody who attended. Howard, did you want to do a traditional closing or we're good? You took your mic off again.
Yes, I will. I will. Yeah.
Okay.
Basta bujo ko din ang kakin so ikito ni beko using to them because kami gid ni question ito ko ben no ka mo to bigan ka question tam ben engage ka ko weekend ito man ito ko ben ka iti tumatisik kinamaw namin siya again isa tam bigan ko na present tam bigan thank you.
Miigwech, everybody. I think we're gonna all disappear, but I'll connect with all of you. And Marin will definitely reach out as well. Thank you, Randall. Go get that duck. Yeah, or go get another duck. My dog almost got me today. Oh, there
Thank
we
you.
go. My
Thank you.
dog almost got a duck today in the pond.
That's
Yeah.
what I needed as a duck. Yeah, I mean a dog. The
dog,
dog would have found that duck. They would have
Yeah.
smelled him.
I've
Oh,
got
yeah.
2 of them. I'll send them your way. They're hunting dogs. Yeah.
Wow.
I don't want one of them right now. You can have that one.
Okay, well, I'll connect with all of you to make sure the honorarium comes through and we'll connect Howard. But congratulations, Howard, on an amazing speaker series, you and Marin. Yeah. Marin was actually having surgery today for her ankle. Like she really hurt it.